All right, welcome back. Now, I'm not going to call this YouTuber out. I'm going to share his voice. I'm going to play his video, but I'm not going to show him on screen, right? I'm doing that solid, but I am going to point out the fact that he hasn't fully shaken off that coon spirit. And I believe just about all Black American men have some degree of a coon spirit inside of them, just growing up in this Black female matriarch. Now, this YouTuber is talking about Charlie Kirk. I want you to listen to this.
But when it comes to Charlie Kirk in the Black community, the Black community are feeling like they're getting picked on because, Charlie Kirk is pinpointing situations that's going on in the Black community and the excuses made by the Black community. Me personally, I agree with everything Charlie Kirk say about the Black community. I totally agree with him. Black people don't want to admit it. They want to get mad. And most of all...
Okay, let's stop. Let's stop right there. Already, he's dealing with Charlie Kirk / Brad's as authority figures over Black men. Don't do that. Stop doing that. Charlie Kirk and other Brads, it's not about whether or not they was telling the truth. They was telling the truth because they was parroting us. Who do you think Charlie Kirk was where do you think Charlie Kirk got that from? He heard us talking about it for years on the internet about how single mothers have destroyed Black boys and made them effeminate. We've been talking about that for years. Charlie Kirk ain't bring no new information to us. No, we're going to acknowledge the fact that we, Black men, have been talking about the exact same things for years. The problem here is that he is a whole white man who is trying to project Black men as the greatest threat to this country based on that information. That's a different context. You see, but if you view Brads as authority figures over us, you will accept people like Charlie Kirk going on a anti-Black male tour. That's literally what Charlie Kirk was doing, people. Just like a rapper would do. Travel from city to city and perform. Charlie Kirk was going from city to city and performing in front of large crowds, giving lectures. Lectures about Black men allegedly abandoning our families. And this YouTuber actually acknowledged that we really didn't actually abandon our kids, that those women left us. Okay, so why haven't you put two and two together? That means this Brad was out here spewing false propaganda to demonize us, when in actuality, he had no right or moral authority to even be doing that. Be going on no tour talking about us. Talk about you and white men's pedophilia. A problem that we as Blacks don't have. Talk about you and white men's leading in crime. White men leading in all categories of violent crime. Talk about that. You don't have no right to talk or lecture to us or about us. That's my point. Black men have not shaken this off, man. Tell Brad to mind his business. He ain't in no position whatsoever to lecture to us. Don't be co-signing. Oh, I agree with him 100%. I think he was telling the truth. Hey, you think he was telling the truth because he's repeating everything that we've been saying. Don't give him credit for it. What you giving him credit for? As if he's the first person you've heard talking about this. It's like, what is this?
Point the situation that's going on in the black community and the excuses made by the black community.
Listen.
When it comes to Charlie Kirk and the black community, the black community are feeling like they're getting picked on because, Charlie Kirk is pinpointing the situation that's going on in the black community and the excuses made by the black community. Me personally, I agree with everything Charlie Kirk say about the black community. I totally agree with him. Black people don't want to admit it. They want to get mad. And most of all, it's a certain group in the black community that most definitely don't like Charlie Kirk. Most definitely, and this is why they don't like Candace Owens either. Let's just put it out there. Black people don't like getting the truth told to them. When Charlie Kirk speak about black people,
That's a lie. That's a lie. We the only ones that talk the truth about ourselves. You never heard Charlie Kirk holding white people up to criticism, up to scrutiny. You never heard Charlie Kirk or any of these white supremacist podcasters have no discussion about their child abuse crimes, their sex abuse crimes, their crimes as far as violent assaults, all violent crime. You don't hear them talking about that. You do hear black people talking about our problems. That's not true, man. We don't want to hear from no Sambo like Candace Owens, no non-FBA coon like Candace Owens. That's the issue. Ain't none of her business. And we don't want to hear from no degenerate child-touching Brad. That's the difference. Ain't no filthy group of nasty child molesters gonna lecture me about nothing. You gonna get slapped in the mouth. You come lecturing to me about single fathers. You better get out of here. Let me ask again for this video. What's worse? Not having a father in the home or having a father in the home that's molesting you every night? I want to hear that.
They feel like they being singled out and picked on. But the truth of the matter is Charlie Kirk is actually telling the truth. We were a whole better people. And I hate to say.
And now, do y'all understand what I'm saying? He is allowing white men to have authority over us. He's dealing with white men as if they are an authority figure over us. Stop doing that. That is insane.
See it in this way. Black people was a better community than what they are today when white people was putting their foot on our neck.
Is Charlie Kirk the first person to point that out? That we were doing better during Jim Crow? No, he is not. So why sit up and talk as if Charlie Kirk brought the light? That's coonery. Lord, let's continue.
So that right there tells you that something has went wrong totally in the black community, to where when we had people literally treating us bad and wrong, laws really were against us. And we were better people. We had more parents in the house. Black men and black women stayed together. They had children together. There wasn't no baby daddy, baby mama. It wasn't none of that going on. They raised children that were respectful, children that went and did something with their lives, not wanting to be shooters and killers.
No, ain't no they raised kids to be nothing. The black fathers was raising them to be that way. The Kieshas wasn't instilling nothing. It was the father. That's why as soon as the fathers were gone, as soon as the fathers were no longer there, the race went downhill. And you had laws where we couldn't even marry white folk. So, yeah, you really didn't have no choice. You had segregation. So you had to do for self. You couldn't go here, you couldn't shop here. So you got to make your own stores. You got to make your own banks. You got to have your own movie theaters and all of that. That's why we had everything, because we were semi-forced to have our own stuff. That's why the Candace Owens, you can't speak for us.
And rappers and and pushing our children just to be athletes. Back then, black people pushed their children to do whatever they want to do. Black people had their own businesses, their own banks, everything. When white people so-called
black men had them businesses, and black men pushed black people to be more than entertainers.
had their foot on our neck. And right now, we don't have that same laws and the same stipulations and things against us in the world today. But yet, black people still have went to the lowest in the class of any community in the United States.
That's not true. That's another lie. I've shown several times, one moment, information from the FBI that shows that white Americans, do you understand that? White Americans lead in almost all categories of crime. This is why I'm saying you can't be a YouTuber without doing your homework. As a YouTuber, it's your job to do your homework. You can't just hop in front of a camera with no information and just start babbling. Here it is right here. You heard him just say we sunk to the lowest of any group in this country. Okay, let's compare us to white America. There you go right there. White America right here, total arrest. Black America right here. You can see in almost every category they lead. And sometimes they lead in homicides. This is just from 1 year or maybe a certain time period. Look, compare the numbers. 11,000 to 4,000. Compare the numbers. They lead. What you talking about? They lead. What are you talking about? This is straight from the FBI's website. Please stop with this madness. Stop with the madness. Stop with the ignorance. Stop with the glorification of Brad. Acting like Brad has brought some new light to black people. It's ridiculous.
So how is it that black people can sit up and still be out here blaming, racism? One thing black people keep on talking about education. You can.
What? I haven't heard that. I don't hear black people talking about. I hear the Tariq Nasheed talking about racism. A lot of his points are valid. The only problem with Tariq Nasheed is that he doesn't like to hold black women accountable. He really don't like to hold black people in general accountable for nothing. He's assumed the position of a black Charlie Kirk, where he exclusively talks about the ills of white folk. But Tariq Nasheed does not have the only fan base in this country. There's several areas of the internet where you have black men holding black people up to scrutiny. So I'm not hearing that. And miseducation, I really don't hear that. Miseducation, I don't hear black people talking about that. This just sounds like one of them false lies spewed by the Candace Owens type, Charlie Kirk's type. That's what it sounds like to me.
You can go out there and give somebody the best education in the world. Okay? Education is not the problem in the black community, because there's people who grew up in them same black communities who are educated and have degrees and are judges, doctors, who are, having big and great careers, who grew up in the same communities with the low education as a lot of us. But there are still black doctors, there are still black lawyers, there are still black surgeons who grew up in these neighborhoods. So education ain't got nothing to do with the problem. Stop blaming education.
What do you mean the problem? What problem are you talking about? On average, white men make about $2,000 to $3,000 more dollars than black men. Black American men in this country. So what problem are you talking about? They're not doing that much better than us. The only thing where they have a huge advantage is in positions of authority. Congressmen, police officers, and stuff like that. The average white person is not doing that much better than the average black person. Okay, I've never understood this talking point.
On why it is that we out here suffering. No, it's not.
Okay, if you want to talk about black suffering, then you talking about a bunch of black women who left their kid's father and who themselves don't want to work, lazy, sitting up on welfare, and boom, now you're in poverty. You're in poverty because you're the only parent and you don't want to work. Yeah, that will create poverty.
It's just that people don't care, and people ain't trying no more in the black community. That's what's going on with it.
No, it ain't people. It ain't got people nothing. It's big, fat, lazy black women with a bunch of kids by a bunch of different baby daddies. That's what it is. When you're talking about black poverty, that's what you're talking about. Don't include us in their laziness. Don't include us in their unwillingness to work and get a job, and their willingness to live in poverty.
Don't blame it on education. You go to court right now, you see a black judge grew up in an era where black people wasn't even given books for real, or they were given old books or whatever. That damn flag on my nerve. But black people weren't given, nothing to be pushed forward with back then. And black people still survived and did more. You know what I'm saying? And now today, there's every opportunity in the world. Ain't no laws up there stopping you, a black person, from getting by.
Exactly. That's why black people are getting by. What are you talking about? Black people are not sitting around complaining that they can't get by. Where are y'all seeing this at exactly? I live in a black city, and I see black people working. That's a white supremacist talking point. That we sit back, complain about racism, and say that the white man holding us down and that racism is the reason why we can't get by. Drop that white supremacist talking point, please. Do you really see that in the real world? I don't. Being this quick to co-sign with white supremacist talking points is coonery.
Ain't no places that black people can't go. Now, let's be real on something. This is something that I understood that I knew Charlie Kirk didn't understand. Now, Charlie Kirk does tell the truth about the black community, but it's one part that Charlie Kirk needs to understand. Black men are not just walking away from their children. That's one part he don't understand because he's not in our community. You can't blame him for that. Charlie Kirk don't know nothing about what's going on in the black community. But from what's being out there and put in statistics and what's being seen by the world, he can comment on that. But Charlie Kirk and to white people are all out there. It's not that black men are running away from their children. In fact, I see more black men, being fathers of the day. Even the ones that's in the streets a little bit, they still out there trying to be fathers. So I do commend my black men on that. But from the time that they started, the subsidizing black women and stuff like that, that's when you seen more black men not raising their children.
No. That's when you seen black women actually leaving. That's when you seen them packing up their stuff and moving into a Section 8 apartment. What are you talking about? There's never been an era where black men simply said, I don't want to take care of my kids. It's always had to do with policies that black women co-signed with and acted on. That's simply not true. And if you acknowledge that black men don't simply abandon their kids, then you should understand that what Charlie Kirk was doing was trying to put targets on our back. You should understand that Charlie Kirk was lying on us, spreading false propaganda on us that served the purpose to put more targets on our backs. See, this black man, like what you're hearing, is the result of so many Kieshas raising black boys. That's what that is. You start to think exactly like this guy under the matriarch, where you view white men as such an authority figure that you dare not hold them up to scrutiny. You dare not question their authority to pass judgment on you, even if they're lying on you, like which he was here, and many of them still are. This is crazy to me.
Then crack hit. You know, that's another excuse people like to blame. Black people like to blame. Oh, crack. Yeah, crack did hit the community, it destroyed the community. That's true. But crack ain't out here today in 2025. So what's the excuse still now?
What's the excuse still now in 2025? Ain't no excuse. You simply still have black women leaving their kids' fathers. What in the world? They have been admitting to this by the thousands. Are you really still trying to push the idea that black men are just running away? Stop it. Stop it. In 2025, these women are still getting knocked up and leaving their kids' father. That's the problem. This is the same problem that existed back then exists today.
What's the excuse still is now? Now, yeah, back in the day when crack and stuff hit, the fathers and, people getting on drugs, people selling drugs, trying to feed children and feed themselves, they go to prison, then you can't stay with your children, mother, you got, what I'm saying? They really kept the black man out. But today, I actually do see more black men trying to be fathers. And the sad part about this, the sad part about seeing most black men trying to be fathers, they got to deal with these ignorant females that's out here watching Love and Hip Hop and Zeus Entertainment Network, Bad as America, being modern day ignorant women walking around with attitudes, putting their children up as bulletproof vests, holding their children hostage from their fathers, situations like that. And and dudes are going through that today trying to be fathers. The only difference is,
if that's the case, then what are you talking about? What's the excuse today? You accuse us of making excuses of not being around our kids, take care of our kids. Then on the next breath, you admit that these women are actually the ones leaving the fathers and making it hard for the fathers to be a part of their kids' life. You haven't done any real homework, man, any real research. And you haven't even come to a solid conclusion. You haven't even formulated a solid argument yet, a consistent argument yet. You're all over the place.
Back then, those were men back then who said, I'm not finna go through all that. Now, yeah, you got a lot of deadbeat black fathers out here. That's not a lie. Fathers. The only difference is back then, those were going through that today trying to be fathers. The only difference is back then, those were men back then who said, I'm not finna go through all that. Now, yeah, you got a lot of deadbeat black fathers out here. That's not a lie, of course. But me personally, I wouldn't let a woman run me through hell for 18 years about a child that's mine. In the Bible, it say in Proverbs, sons, respect your father, for he gave you life. That's in Proverbs in the Bible. Men give children life. Women carry the child. Women carry the child. Man's seed gives a child's life, gives a child life. So it's been wrong so I'm not finna going back and forth with a woman and you wouldn't even have this child that you're getting benefits off of if it wasn't for me. And you think when I ask to see my child, I'm finna argue with you? No, I tell you what, you can call me a coward, deadbeat, whatever, but the self-preservation is the biggest key on this earth.
Okay, enough. This man sounds caught up in between acknowledging the things that black women do that causes single mother households. He's caught up in between that and looking at white men as authority figures. And when I say looking at white men as authority figures, I'm including the Candace Owens in that, because that's where she got her talking points from. She got her talking points from white supremacists. Remember, Charlie Kirk was pushing this idea that we were simply abandoning our kids. That has always been a white supremacist talking point. So this habit of saying, hey, yeah, I agree with Charlie Kirk. I agree with everything he said. You shouldn't even drop that. Drop that. Get familiar with the facts. Stop viewing blacks as the most problematic element of society, as the downfall of society. That sounds like partly what it is with this guy. He's so fixated on Black America and doesn't even know the stats, doesn't even know the facts. You just caught up in your own community, fixated on Black America, say, yeah, we terrible, we the worst. And it seems like you're looking at the white race as if they're a race of angels with the authority to question us. No, they don't have no authority to question us. So it's really that simple, and I'll leave it there.